brain you have is the same brain your ancestors had 10,000 years ago. What that means is that stress response that's deeply embedded in our brain is going off when you're sitting in traffic, when you get that upsetting phone call, you have too many emails, you name any stress in your life, anything that's stressing you out, and it turns out you're activating a mechanism in your brain that really evolved a long, long time ago to deal with sudden stresses, things like bear attacks. But we're living in a modern world, and things like this, traffic, or day-to-day stresses in our personal or professional life, are turning on this stress response all the time. And what was once acute stress, something that starts and stops, is stress now that's just chronic. It just doesn't seem to end. One way to think about this is these types of stress, they happen all the time. If you're having a bear attack every day, you're living in the wrong neighborhood, right? You need to move. It's not the right environment. But the idea is that chronic stress too much, too often, not taking a break from the stress, can heavily impact not only our happiness, our productivity, but that cortisol release, if it's too much too often, it can be very damaging for our health. You pretty much name any disease head to toe, and too much cortisol can play a factor in that disease. It can play a factor in raising our risk for disease. So we're concerned about too much stress. But it would be terrible if you left here today with the message that stress is bad. That's not the message. Stress-free is not realistic. It's not ideal. That burst of stress that we get, excited about our work or tackling a project, that motivates us, it helps us think clearly, it helps us rise to the occasion. If we didn't have stress in our life, we really wouldn't do much. We wouldn't get off the couch. We even have studies coming out of UC Berkeley that show that a burst of stress is really good for our brain. It causes our brain cells to grow new brain cells. It keeps our brain young. It keeps us healthy. It turns on anti-aging mechanisms. We want to embrace stress, just as long as it's not too much, too often. Bursts of stress are very good. This is really what we're going to spend the next couple minutes talking about. Too little stress, we're not engaged. We're not focused. We're not interested. Too much stress, we're overwhelmed. So how does each of us, since we're all so different, or the people that work for you or work in your environment or you work with, if we're all so different, how do we find just the right amount of stress that we can all rise to the occasion and be our best and not be overwhelmed?